Two boots, thick soles, covered in dust and dried mud, standing alone without the soldier, without the weight of a body, without a soul, just silence, the helmet wedged between them, and the absence that screams louder than any explosion. Have you ever stopped to think how many boots return? With no one inside, at every military ceremony, at every base where mourners don uniforms, they are there, silent. The boots are symbols. They represent those who left, and never returned. But behind each one there is a story, a mother who received the news, a father who never left his room, a daughter who waited for the hug that never came, and a name engraved in stone, as if that were enough to console someone. But at ISN single quotes T. In a small town in rural Texas, the ceremony was simple. Rows of folding chairs, flags waving, and a line of childhood friends lined up in silence. In the center, the boots. The soldier's name was Miguel Herrera, 22 years old, the first to leave his family to serve. He was the kind of boy who opened the car door for his grandmother, who played soccer with the street kids, who promised to return to fix the roof. But he never did. A well-aimed shot from nowhere ended everything. When his comrades reached him, they were only able to carry back his equipment and his boots. They were placed side by side, firmly on the ground, as if still carrying the weight of courage. But they were hollow. At the funeral, his mother broke down when she saw that pair. Not the coffin, not the anthem playing in the background, but the boots, because there was the Miguel she knew. The one who ran around the house on Sundays, who climbed onto the sofa in his dirty boots and laughed when he was scolded. Those boots told more about the war than any general's speech, because they were living proof that someone gave everything and took nothing back. And Miguel is just one name among thousands. In every war, on every battlefield, numbers try to reduce what should never be statistics. But what if we looked beyond the numbers? What if each pair of boots spoke? What would the soldier who never got to say goodbye say? Or the one who saved lives but lost his own? Or the one who fought for a country whose name didn't even come to mind? There are soldiers who died with a letter in their pocket apologizing to their mother. There are soldiers who held another's hand until the end. There are soldiers who didn't even have time to scream. At a memorial in Oklahoma, more than 7,000 pairs of boots are lined up. Each one bears a name, a flag, and a face. It's impossible to walk among them and not feel like you're stepping into a field of absence. They are shoes without steps, silenced voices, broken promises, and, sometimes, a letter tied to the laces, words no one read, dreams no one lived. It's not about patriotism, nor about politics. It's about people, about lives ended prematurely, about bodies that became memories, about families who buried what was left and learned to smile with longing. And the cruelest thing is that not everyone returns with boots. There are those who remain unidentified. There are those who turn to dust in a foreign land. There are those who don't even have a name in stone, only an absence that lingers. A child who doesn't arrive for dinner, a husband who disappears from photos, a friend who never responded to the last message, and all that's left is what can be gathered. A watch, a chain, a crumpled letter in the pocket, and the boots, always them, as if they were the last thing to touch the ground before the silence. But what drives someone to go? What drives young people to leave everything behind and march toward a destiny that could be their last? A promise of honor, a desire to change the world, or a desperate need to escape poverty, earn a degree, secure insurance for their family. Many enlist out of ideology, others for lack of options, and when the war ends, it lingers in the minds of those who return, and it eternally haunts those who stayed. Because every war has two types of soldiers, those who return, and those who don't, and the latter, even dead, keep screaming, but few people listen. This documentary is about them, about the voices lost amidst gunfire and grenades, about the names on murals but unreadable, about the parents who blame themselves, the children who rebel, the siblings who can't get over it, and, most of all, about the boots, those that remain lined up, waiting for a body that will never return. If you gaze at those boots in silence, you'll sense they carry more than just a soldier's absence. They carry decisions made decades before he was born. Because no war begins on the day the first shot is fired. It begins much earlier, in closed rooms, on tables covered in maps and contracts, in the cold gaze of those who see war as an opportunity. The soldier only enters history in the final chapter of the decision, but he is the first to pay the price. Miguel's story, like so many others, began long before he donned the uniform. It began when political and economic interests collided. like tectonic plates, a dispute over territory, oil, influence. Men in suits decided it was worth sending young men to the front lines. They wouldn't need to bleed, just sign papers, and while the speeches spoke of freedom and national defense, the contracts spoke of figures, barrels, trade routes. It was a power game. And in this game, pieces are sacrificed. Always the same pieces. It's easy to blame the enemy when the bombs fall, but few consider the agreements made years before. What led Miguel's troops to that remote village wasn't just military strategy. It was a history of broken alliances, political promises, and silent disputes. One freezing morning, an attack on an outpost lit the fuse. But the fuse had already been burning for decades. The war just needed an excuse. And here's the detail almost no one wants to face. Behind every conflict, there's someone profiting. Weapons factories work 3 shifts. Stocks soar. Billion-dollar contracts are signed while coffins arrive draped in flags. And the official discourse always speaks of honor, but rarely of who lines the pockets. It was the same in the Vietnam War, Afghanistan, Iraq. Different stories, similar scenarios. Families torn apart to maintain geopolitical interests. No memorial mentions that Miguel died because someone needed to protect an oil pipeline. No military ceremony reveals that the attack was motivated by a secret agreement signed months earlier. And when the boots come back empty, the official silence is deafening. He died a hero, they say, but at home, his mother knows he died for something even she can't explain, and that's the deepest wound, dying for a cause that wasn't his, in a war that should never have started. The root is always hidden, buried beneath layers of rhetoric and patriotic rhetoric. But those who lose a son, a father, or a brother, dig until they find it, and what they find is rarely pretty. Now tell me, ... do you really want more stories to end like this, or will you help spread this truth so more people understand what's behind those empty boots? If this story touched you, share it now, like it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because only together can we give a voice to those who never returned. And in the next chapter, you'll see how this war continues to this day, even for those who think they're far from it today. The present hurts in ways that don't always fit. In the headlines, the effects of war cross borders, hitchhike along the routes of wheat, oil, and microchips, enter your kitchen, and weigh heavily on your pockets at the grocery store. You may never have seen a tank on the street, but you've seen the price of bread rise, felt gasoline bite into your wages, noticed shipping costs rise, and the unemployment line grow. While generals move pieces on maps, mothers move furniture to fit mattresses of relatives who fled. In neighborhoods far from the front, children repeat the names of cities they didn't know at school. The conflict changes, shipping routes, closes, ports, destroys crops, disrupts supply chains, and brings uncertainty to commerce. The shrapnel respects no borders. It crosses continents, and hits hard those who only wanted to live in peace. In their offices, psychologists treat veterans and those who have never worn a uniform. The anxiety of a world on alert doesn't turn off with the TV. It stays in the chest and tightens at night. In the refugee camp I visited, the wind carried dust and half-finished conversations. Children played with empty bottles, as if they were race cars, while their mothers lined up for water. A boy showed me a drawing of burning houses and asked if my town also had sirens. I answered no, and felt guilty. He said he remembers the street where he lived by the smell of bread, not by its name. A teacher tried to keep the canvas school open, repeating letters on the plastic board and smiling, even when the paint ran out. With each distant helicopter, some jumped. Fear has a reflex. Fear lives in the body. Fear learns routine. These people don't want revenge. They want to start over. They want to sleep without fear. They want work, vaccinations, documents, classes, and shelter. The war doesn't end when the last shot stops. It continues in the lines, in the hallways, in the downcast eyes and long silences. The present is a camp that promises to be temporary and grows old with the canvas. In cities that seem far away, war arrives through bills. The market switches suppliers. Rice becomes more expensive. Truck drivers limit travel. The bakery owner reduces the amount of baking. The neighborhood metalworks delay orders because surplus steel at the port has become scarce. Those who worked in exports lose contracts. Those who depended on imported parts improvise with what they can. This is called a broken chain, and a broken chain becomes an empty table. In cramped homes, the bill becomes cruel. Fuel or medicine, rent or school supplies. The decision weighs heavily on the body and eyes. We make more mistakes when there's a shortage, and even more shortages when war sends a message through prices. It's not theory, it's the emptier shelves, the crowded bus, the shortened shift, the smaller cart at the checkout. It's the fear of not making it through the month, even with the same effort. It's the feeling that the world has shrunk into the wrong place. And even when prices drop, no one recovers lost sleep. The gift that hurts hides in the small daily choices. It returns in homes where someone has returned from war. The present hurts in a different way. The soldier finds the door again, but the door seems smaller. The sound of the pot becomes an alarm. The ringing of the gate becomes an alert. The gaze is lost in space for a few seconds, and no one understands, but everyone understands. The family treads lightly, as if walking on broken glass. It's hard to ask for help when the medal on the wall says everything is fine. Pride prevents it, shame blocks it, but the mind takes its toll. Insomnia, irritation, aimless anger, unfounded sadness. The war continues in dark rooms, in silent corridors, at tables where no one knows what topic is safe. Some seek help, others remain silent, and those who didn't return are remembered in every window reflection, in every pair of boots stored in the closet. Life becomes an exercise in balance. On the other side, there are families without flags, civilians who lost their homes and names. They didn't ask for war, they survived and carried the fear like a tattoo, visible or not. They hurt just as much. Meanwhile, discourse tries to shape what we feel. Headlines prefer glittering figures that hide bodies that ache. Authorities promise security, companies promise stability, analysts promise normalization. The word promise has become a crutch. On the radio, war becomes a sketch. On TV, it becomes a debate. On the internet, it becomes a label and a fight. But life doesn't fit into labels. Pain has no short name. There are those who manipulate fear to win votes, and there are those who sell certainty as a product. The painful present is also made of calculated phrases, of euphemisms that perfume tragedies, of reports that talk about adjustments and forget that behind them are dishes and people. When the news ends, the world remains out of balance, and no one picks up the slack. The harsh truth is that the impact is distributed unevenly. Those with reserves ride the wave. Those without swallow water. It's urgent to listen to those living on the edge. They show where the line has stalled and where aid hasn't arrived. No filter if you want to measure the present. Return to the empty boots. They are an index, a barometer, and a diary. Each tribute in a public square hides a reorganized house, a patched lace, an empty place at the table. The name engraved in stone is not past. It is a present that insists on remaining. It is in the way the city changes its sound when the siren sounds, in the way the church fills on Sundays with remembrance, in the ritual of folding the flag every time the room gets crowded. The lives of those left behind have become a continuous negotiation with the next day. They move on, but not as before. The world moves on, but now knows a new silence. And we who watch have an obligation to see beyond the picture and the data. See people, see choice, see that the war is far away on the map, but lives close in effect. The present that hurts is the daily legacy of battles we refuse to understand until it is too late. And when the anthem ends, the wait does not end. The heart beats between grief and courage. What will we do before another line forms? If today already hurts, tomorrow can wound even deeper. All it takes is a miscalculation, a faulty radar, a poorly spoken phrase at a press conference for new lines of boots to line up in silence. Wars rarely end the day a document is signed. They survive in tensions, in retaliations, in borders that become open wounds. When one army retreats, another advances, and the population is caught in the middle, trying to save what still has a name. The question no one wants to ask is simple and brutal. How many more absences can we fit into our future? There are stores of hatred being stored in speeches. There are families trying to forget. There are young people growing up among ruins that teach them to repeat. If nothing changes, what awaits us are more memorials, more framed photos, and more empty boots telling stories that could have been avoided. That is why the future demands courage, truth, and choices that postpone nothing. There is a possible path, and it begins with the word many call weak: diplomacy. It's not weakness, it's the courage to sit down with those who have hurt, acknowledge the damage, ensure justice, open humanitarian corridors, return the missing, and rebuild schools and hospitals before avenues and palaces. Diplomacy that works doesn't romanticize the aggressor, but imposes verification, deadlines, and consequences, with the whole world watching. It creates reporting mechanisms, protects journalists, documents crimes, supports survivors, and protects veterans. It demands a truth commission and reparations that aren't limited to monetary gain. It's slow, it's tiring, and it's unpopular for those who profit in haste. But it saves names, saves photos, and saves conversations that can still happen. Mediation requires independent witnesses and neighbors who won't sell silence. It requires breathing space for civil society, shelter for rights defenders, and security for those who gather evidence in the wee hours. Agreements only last when daily life improves, when water arrives, when buses run again, when the market reopens without fear. Peace is infrastructure that pulses. Only then will we stop counting absences and start writing returns with dignity. There is another path, and it wears a rapid response uniform. Sanctions that turn into famine in the wrong places, blockades that spark parallel markets, surgical strikes that miss their target, drones that multiply like swarms, and algorithms that decide who lives in seconds. Nuclear rhetoric returns to the vocabulary, even when no one admits wanting to use it. Cyber attacks knock out power to hospitals, signal drops, disinformation fills the space before the truth arrives. Each abrupt step closes future doors. Each public humiliation fabricates the next revenge. In this terrain, war changes its face, but its logic doesn't change. The price falls on the same people. Mothers who bury children, workers who lose wages, cities that relearn fear, platforms remove content, but the rumor has already crossed borders, and panic becomes botched public policy. Exhausted soldiers make decisions under pressure, and decisions under pressure cost lives. The old cycle of punishment and response fuels what it promises to contain. The winner is the market of violence, always ready to offer more of the same, with new labels and new packaging. May this lesson be a lesson now, before the next siren wakes those already sleeping restlessly. And then there's the unthinkable, which history insists on remembering. An incident on the open sea, a lost missile, a plane shot down by mistake, and alliances are called by name. Treaties are read aloud, collective defense rules turn on lights, no one knows how to turn off. Mercenaries fill gaps in fragile states, private companies turn combat into contracts, and war ceases to be a map and becomes a franchise. The line between crime and conflict dissolves, drug trafficking negotiates passage, militias exact a toll of desperation. Meanwhile, deepfakes mix real tears with fabricated scenes, and every phone becomes a trench. When trust dies, every gesture becomes a threat. Diplomacy is held hostage by the clock, and old formulas lose their effect in the face of actors who don't sign treaties and don't carry flags. The risk grows silently and reveals itself in seconds. By the time we realize it, we're already negotiating the bare minimum, maintaining hospitals, saving children, securing transmission lines. It's the kind of negotiation that should never happen outside of a nightmare. There is still time to retreat from the abyss if there is listening, prudence, and respect for the living. What remains for us to do now? Demand transparency, support those who return alive, support those left destitute, monitor budgets that grow in the dark. Demand that every war-related contract be made public, that every investigation have a deadline, that every promise become action. Strengthen local networks, from the food pantry to the health center, because that's where peace begins to blossom. Teach in schools the value of a conflict avoided, not the glamour of victory. Protect the free press and the work of those who document the horror. Discuss sanctions without forgetting food and medicine. Open doors to refugees with dignity and work, so that ruin doesn't become routine. It's also time to listen to the peripheries and camps, where the bill always comes first. They know what's missing and how to share what's there. Supporting those who build bridges between communities is building antibodies against fear. This is how we prevent forced recruitment and dangerous escape routes. Peace doesn't fall from the sky. Peace is a daily work, made of visits, counseling, assemblies, and open hands. Peace is built in detail, with transparency, care, and unfailing commitment. I walk among the boots and think about what we still don't know. Each pair holds secrets that don't fit on the bronze plaques, memories that survive in notes tied to the laces. Among these names is one who returned silently, not as a body, but as a story no one told. He carried something that could change the way we understand that front, that command. That day the radio went silent. Tomorrow may be worse, yes, if we remain silent again, but it could also be the place where the truth finally finds someone to listen. In the next block, we open this wound with respect and courage, because among so many empty boots, one of them holds a secret that still pulsates. waiting to be told, so that others don't have to fall in line. It's not a barracks legend. It's material. It's testimony. It's a record that was hidden. He wanted to tell it and couldn't. Now it's up to us to listen calmly, cross-reference facts, respect those who suffered, and still raise uncomfortable questions. It's the only way to stop the same mistake from happening again. Listen with me to what comes next. Because the truth demands a voice and a way to come out. I look at the empty boots and think about what remains when the anthems cease. The weight of the engraved name remains. The sound of the chair scraping. At dinner, the photo propped on the shelf. The path to school that a father will never walk. The stadium bench that will never hear that scream again. A room smells of clean laundry that no one will wear remains. If war has a legacy, it doesn't fit in medals. It fits in the hands that tremble as they fold a flag, in the unanswered letters, in the laughter that became memories. Each pair of boots tells the same end and a new beginning for those left behind. It's life searching for a way to move on, with an empty space ahead, and if the question is simple, what do we do with that space? Some fill it with silence, others with work. There are those who turn on the hallway light just to deceive the longing. Absence cannot be cured. It is learned. One learns to speak softly when the memory weighs heavy. One learns to walk slowly, as if respecting an invisible sanctuary at home. Like this. Some ask why we insist on remembering, because forgetting is the quickest way to repeat. Memorials exist to warn that peace is fragile and needs daily care. On each plaque lies a choice, deciding that pain will not be adornment, deciding that names will not be statistics. When a city gathers to erect crosses, steel arches, or marble walls, it does not celebrate war. It celebrates the lives that were cut short. That's why we walk slowly between the rows, slowly read each surname, and restore to those who never returned the right to be more than a uniform. There appear those who played the guitar, those who fixed bicycles, those who made the best beans. In some memorials, pairs of boots lined up from dawn to dusk. In others, flowers are taped with ribbons with dates and simple promises. I saw a father place a toy car next to a helmet. I saw a grandmother run her hand over the leather as if blessing it. It's caring for the living to honor those who are gone. That's how it is. Start among so many stories. One always comes back to me. When I walk among the ranks, it tells of a simple, hard secret. A soldier left a short message tied to his shoelace, delivered to his family with his boots. In it, he asked them to remember him not as a hero, but as a son. He apologized for promising to return and for believing that courage was enough. He didn't mention battles. He mentioned Sunday dessert, the smell of the yard, the sound of the gate. It's a request that doesn't fit into speeches. It fits into a hug. This note, kept in a shoebox, teaches more than a manual. It says that war steals entire vocabularies. After it, many words change meaning. Home becomes shelter. Future becomes attempt. Heroism becomes silence. He said he didn't want his name used to fuel hate speech. He wanted his departure to serve to protect boys from the next wave. He asked them to take care of their classmates who returned with heavy heads. He asked them to tell the dull truth. That's it. That's it. We then arrive at the question that permeates this entire film. What do we do now? There is no single answer. There are common tasks: caring for those who have returned, providing psychological support without the impossible weight, guiding veterans to dignified work, supporting families who have lost income, protecting the names of those seeking justice, opening files when the truth needs air, documenting crimes so they don't happen again, defending journalists and medical teams in the field, supporting refugees with real homes, schools, and jobs, monitoring military budgets with a magnifying glass and light, voting carefully where war often begins. All of this fits into everyday life. Peace is not an event, it is maintenance. It is rejecting cliches that transform suffering into slogans. It is demanding transparency when a contract grows in the dark. It is demanding that promises of reconstruction become deadlines and deliverables. It is teaching in schools that victory is not a medal. If that happens, we all lose. It is also speaking of grief without shame. It is an agreement that preserves lives, not egos. When I close my eyes, I can still hear the sound of boots hitting the cement floor of the memorial. The cadence creates a never-ending march. It's as if each step repeats a summons. Remember, care, avoid. This film didn't bring easy answers because they don't exist. It brought faces, letters, gestures, prices, fears, and choices. It brought a note asking not to become a flag of hate. It brought the reminder that a hero is a word that doesn't console a mother. What consoles is time, care, and truth. and the truth hurts, but it's the only bridge that allows us to escape the cycle. If we respond to each pair of empty boots with more indifference, the next pair is already on the way. If we respond with attention and courage, someone returns home. What we are willing to change before another absence settles in the room. We are willing to monitor, to listen, to share, to protect those who denounce. We are ready to accept that peace is service, and that service is tiring. We are ready to give up easy phrases. Yes, now you know the path. It begins with a line of silent boots and ends at your front door. It ends at your table, in conversations with your loved ones, in the way you vote, buy, and demand. It ends in the way you welcome those who return, how you listen to those who have suffered, how you confront those who profit from suffering. There is no safe audience when violence grows. There are people, and people change course when they face the mirror, without fear. If each person takes a small part, the sum becomes a wall against the repetition of the same mistake. If each city decides to protect life before the speech, the march loses strength. Perhaps it is not enough. That's what we have. Between honoring the past and preventing new absences, choose both. And carry this question into the night. Have we learned anything, or are we repeating everything all over again? When the video ends, look at your loved ones. Say that life comes first. Write down a possible gesture for tomorrow. Call those in need. That's where the march ends. Walk calmly, without fear.